A young boy vanished while playing by the river, never to be seen again. For over 10 years, his disappearance remained a haunting mystery, with no clues, no answers. But one day, his sister spots something strange at a small-town flea market. A rusty bike that looks exactly like his. A closer look confirms it. It is his. A discovery that would unravel the silence of the past and reveal the chilling truth about what really happened to him. The sun hung low above the town of Elmswick, spilling gold light over rusted rooftops and sleepy sidewalks. Somewhere, a screen door creaked open. Somewhere else, an old dog barked at a passing cloud. But down by the riverside flea market, the world smelled like dust, mothballs, and forgotten things. Clara wasn't supposed to be there. She should have been at the library, reshelving donated cookbooks or arguing with the printer. But some mornings, like this one, the air grew too heavy inside her chest. On those mornings, she wandered. And Elmswick's Saturday flea market, an endless sea of tarps, rusting tools, old army coats, and chipped porcelain dolls, was good for getting lost in. She wasn't looking for anything. But something found her. The first thing she noticed was the blue, faded, nearly gray, but not enough to forget. The sun caught the chipped paint just right, peeling like old scars. Next, the handlebar, bent slightly left. Just like her heart skipped. Her hand rose to her mouth, fingertips pressing against dry lips. It was Ethan's bike. She didn't move, couldn't. Her body rooted in place like a statue. Like if she breathed too hard, it would vanish. 10 years, 10 goddamn years. But there it was, the blue Schwinn. Same rusted chain, same lopsided reflector on the rear fender. Same child-sized handlebars, wrapped in worn black tape. The air grew thin. A memory broke loose. Ethan, 7, hollering as he zoomed past her down their old gravel road, feet barely touching the pedals. "Bet you can't catch me, Clara," she blinked. The bike didn't vanish. A stall vendor in a worn baseball cap was arranging knives on a blanket nearby. She turned to him, voice like gravel. "Where'd you get this?" The man looked up, eyes flicking from the bike to her. "Which?" "This bike," she said, stepping closer. "Where did you get it?" He scratched the back of his neck. "That one? Found it with a load of junk. Estate clean out. Some old guy up near Mill Run." "What old guy?" He shrugged. "Didn't catch a name. Just dropped off a pile. You want it? I'll give it to you for $10. Needs work." She stared at him. "You don't understand. This belonged to someone, my brother." He gave a lazy smile. "Well then, it found its way home, huh?" But Clara wasn't smiling. She knelt, touching the bike's frame like it might burn her. Her fingers brushed the bent handlebar. Her breath hitched. Then she leaned in closer, pressing her thumb beneath the cracked rear reflector. There it was. 3 letters scratched into the metal, barely visible. E-L-O Ethan Liam O'Connor. Clara stood. Her legs felt numb. She pulled out a crumpled $10 bill from her jeans and handed it over. The man waved her off. "Don't worry about it." She wheeled the bike away, heart thudding in her ears. The world around her, the chatter, the clinking glass, the scent of kettle corn, faded into white noise. The river was only a few streets away. She didn't even realize she'd started walking toward it until the breeze picked up, cool and damp, carrying the sharp, mossy scent of water and silt. She stopped at the edge of the riverbank. 10 years ago, Ethan had disappeared from this spot. The town said he drowned. Slipped and fell, they said. But there was no body, no shoes. Just the bike, which was never found until now. Clara stood there, staring at the water. The bike beside her like a ghost from a different life. The river flowed quietly, as if it had nothing left to say. But Clara wasn't ready to stop listening. That night, she couldn't sleep. The bike leaned against the wall of her apartment, casting long shadows in the moonlight. Her cat, June, sat beneath it, staring like it might move on its own. Clara sat at her kitchen table, drinking lukewarm tea, the same Polaroid photo lying in front of her. Ethan, grinning, missing a front tooth, holding up a frog in each hand like a trophy. She'd stared at this picture 1,000 times. But now it whispered different things. At midnight, her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "You awake? Please, tell me you didn't buy that haunted tricycle." Clara smiled for the first time all day. "It's not haunted. It's his." Maya responded with a 3-dot pause. "Clara, it's Ethan's. I know it. I found the initials under the reflector." Another pause. "Babe, that doesn't mean he's alive. It's just a bike." "Number?" "It's a message. Clara, I'm going to trace where it came from." "Clara, this obsession will drown you." Clara stared at the last message, then typed, "Then I'll learn how to swim." The next morning, Clara showed up at the flea market again. The vendor was gone. In his place was a table of second-hand gardening gloves and a woman selling carved soap. Clara paced the lot, asking around. Nobody knew his name. "Wore a cap, talked slow," she offered. "Sorry," someone said. "Could be anyone." She went home with clenched fists. By noon, she was at her desk in the library, flipping through old property records. "Mill Run," he'd said. That was 10 miles north, mostly farmland and a stretch of old cabins hugging the river. She found a list of estates cleaned out in the last 6 months. One name came up 3 times. D. Thorne. She printed the file, eyes scanning for an address. Later, at Maya's house, Clara paced the living room while Maya poured wine. "You seriously want to drive up to Mill Run and knock on some dead guy's door?" Maya asked, handing her the glass. Clara didn't answer. Maya sat on the couch. "I love you, but this is grief, not a clue. You found a bike. It doesn't mean—" "It means something," Clara said sharply. "It has to." Maya tilted her head. "Why?" Clara's throat closed. Her voice dropped. "Because if it doesn't, then I've spent 10 years waiting for nothing." Maya said nothing, just reached over and squeezed her hand. 3 days later, Clara stood outside the Thorne property. The farmhouse sagged under ivy. The yard was wild with weeds. The porch creaked when she stepped on it. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Then she turned the knob. Unlocked. The door opened with a groan. "Hello," she called. Silence. The air smelled like mold and old tobacco. Dust swirled in sunbeams. Clara stepped inside. A stack of newspapers lay by the door. Local obits, dated 6 months back. She wandered room to room, heart pounding, until she found the garage. Tools on the wall, boxes, and in the corner, a stack of old bikes. Her breath caught. One was missing. She knelt beside the others, searching for tags. Anything. Nothing. Then a creak behind her. She turned. An old man stood in the doorway. Thin, sunken eyes, white stubble on his chin. "You're trespassing," he said. Clara stood slowly. "I'm sorry, I think a bike of mine was taken from here." He stared at her. Then his eyes softened. "The blue one," she nodded. He sighed. "Didn't think anyone would notice." Clara stepped closer. "Where did you get it?" He didn't answer right away. Just looked past her, toward the garage window. "Been sitting in the barn for years," he said finally. "Came from the schoolhouse cleanup. They dumped a load of junk in my yard back in '16. Said to haul it or burn it." "Which schoolhouse?" He hesitated. "Old Mill Run Elementary," he said. "Closed years ago. Condemned." Clara felt the air leave her lungs. Why would Ethan's bike be there? The man's lips pressed together. She stepped forward. Did you know him? Ethan O'Connor. His gaze dropped. After a moment, he whispered, I think he was kept there. The room tilted. What? He looked at her, guilt like a storm behind his eyes. There were things. I saw things. But I was scared to talk. Still am. Clara's voice trembled. What things? Men. Late at night, boats down by the river, moving crates. Sometimes kids, blindfolded. Her hands went cold. Why didn't you say anything? Because people disappear in this town when they ask questions. I didn't want to be next. He turned to go. But before he did, he pulled something from his coat pocket and held it out. A piece of paper, yellowed, torn from a notebook. She took it with shaking fingers. 3 words, he's alive, don't stop. Clara read the note 5 times before she could breathe again. The handwriting was crooked, pressed hard like it was written in a rush, or by someone whose hands wouldn't stop shaking. The last word, stop, trailed off, as though the writer had been interrupted. Or worse. She looked up, but the old man was already gone. Only the echo of his footsteps down the hall remained. She stood frozen in the garage, the paper still clutched in her fingers, her heart racing hard enough to drown out thought. He's alive! Don't stop! Those 3 words spun inside her like a storm wind. They weren't proof. They weren't a location or a name, but they were hope. And Clara hadn't tasted hope in a decade. When she finally stumbled back out into the afternoon sun, the world felt unreal, the air too bright, the birds too loud. Her own footsteps crunching in the gravel sounded like they belonged to someone else. She climbed into her car, shut the door, and just sat there gripping the steering wheel. He's alive, she whispered. The wind caught her voice and took it. Back in town, Clara didn't go home. She went to the library. She wasn't scheduled to work, but the key still worked. She shut the door behind her and walked straight to the local history section, heart thudding. Old Mill Run Elementary. She pulled down a brittle binder labeled Closed Public Facilities, 2000 to 2020, and flipped until she found it. Mill Run Elementary, closed. August 2015. Reason, structural instability, low enrollment. Notable incidents. Break-ins reported 2014, 2015. Final status. Condemned, fenced off. River adjacent last staff listed. Principal D. Halvers, Mr. J. Kessler. Mrs. Rennie, Mr. M. Garrow Clara, underlined each name with her fingertip. She had grown up near Mill Run. She didn't remember anyone talking about those names. Nothing that stuck. She checked the old library computer and pulled up archived articles from 2015. Buried beneath local softball wins and bake sale announcements, she found it. Condemned schoolhouse targeted by vandals again. Locals report seeing flashlights inside the school's gymnasium after dark. Local authorities dismiss rumors of something bigger. One unnamed resident insists the river has been used as a smuggling highway. Clara leaned back in her chair. The river again. Always the river. She closed the article and turned her gaze out the window. The Olin River ran quiet today, lazy and flat under the morning sun. But Clara had seen it during the floods. She'd seen how it swallowed trees, how fast it could pull. It was a current strong enough to hide anything, even people, even Ethan. Maya let herself into Clara's apartment that evening, without knocking. She found Clara crouched on the living room floor, scrubbing at the Schwinn's tires with a toothbrush. Wow, Maya said. This is new. Clara didn't look up. I found soil in the treads. Dirt? Clay, mostly. Some moss. Look at the color, dark red-brown. You don't get that downtown. Maya crouched beside her. Clara. I think it's riverbank clay, Clara whispered. Maybe from downstream, near the warehouses. Maya blinked. Okay. So, what? The bike was moved recently. I don't know, but it was somewhere. And the dirt didn't come from the Thorn place. Maya exhaled, long and slow. This is a conspiracy movie, babe. You're one corkboard away from going full detective. Clara looked up, eyes glassy. I am the corkboard. Maya didn't laugh. Clara got up and crossed the room to her bulletin board, already peppered with old news articles, hand-drawn maps, and a printout of the Mill Run school record. She pinned the note beside Ethan's photo. Then she turned to Maya. I need your help. Maya stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. What do you need? They drove out just past sunset. The warehouse district by the river had always looked a little haunted. Half the buildings stood empty. Others hosted second-hand storage, old equipment, and shadowy businesses that kept no real signs posted. The air smelled like metal, oil, and river rot. Clara parked 2 blocks away behind an abandoned bus station. This is insane, Maya muttered, slipping her phone into her back pocket. We're either going to get tetanus or mugged. Clara zipped her jacket. We won't be long. They crept through the dark, shoes crunching over broken concrete. Streetlights flickered overhead. The river murmured in the distance, its black water shining like oil under the moon. They stopped in front of Warehouse 11. The lock on the door was broken, rusted through. Clara pulled out a flashlight. Let's check inside. The warehouse yawned open, swallowing the beam of her light. Rows of rotting pallets lined the floor, tires, plastic crates. A dusty recliner half covered in a tarp. At the far end, a ramp led down to a narrow door facing the river. Clara knelt beside a patch of dirt near the entrance. Same red-brown clay. Her breath caught. Clara, Maya whispered. What? Maya pointed at the wall. There, faint but visible in the dust, was a symbol drawn in chalk. A child's handprint. Just one. Small. Below it, the number 7. Clara's knees buckled. She reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the outline. It flaked off under her touch. Is this... Maya trailed off. Clara turned. This is where they kept him. I know it. Maya shook her head. Clara, this is just a ruined building. That chalk could be years old. But Clara wasn't listening. She was already stepping down the ramp, heading for the river door. It wasn't locked. It opened with a screech. Outside, the river flowed just below the concrete ledge. Maya shivered. We should go, now. Clara didn't answer. Instead, she spotted something. In the mud near the edge of the riverbank, half buried in clay. She knelt and pulled it free. A child's rain boot, blue with faded yellow stars. She stood, staring down at it. Then a sound made both of them freeze. A car engine, nearby. Then a door slam. Then footsteps. Maya's eyes widened. Clara. Back door, now. They scrambled up the ramp, darted past the crates, and slipped out through the broken lock just as a flashlight beam swept across the inside wall. They didn't look back. They didn't stop running until they were back at the car. Later, in the safety of Clara's apartment, Maya held a bag of frozen peas to her ankle and stared at the rain boot on the table. Tell me that's a coincidence, she said quietly. Clara shook her head. That model was discontinued in 2013, she said. I checked. Ethan had a pair. They were his favorite. Maya looked at her. You think he was kept there? I think he's still alive. Maya exhaled shakily. What if this is bigger than we thought? Smuggling rings, corruption. What if we're being watched? Clara looked down at her phone. A notification blinked. Facebook. Someone had commented on her old post about the bike. The one with the photo of her holding it, captioned, Never give up. The comment read, Let it lie. The message sat on Clara's phone like a bruise. Let it lie. Just 3 words. Anonymous account. No photo, no friends, no posts. Maya stood over her shoulder, arms crossed tight. Delete it. I can't, Clara whispered. What if it's just some troll? Clara shook her head. Number, it's a warning. Maya grabbed the phone, flipped the profile open. This account's a ghost. It was made yesterday. Someone made it just to say that. Clara took the phone back and stared at the message again. Then she did something Maya didn't expect. She hit reply. Her fingers moved with slow, deliberate calm. Why? No answer. They waited. 10 minutes, 20, an hour, nothing. The silence was worse than a threat. The next morning, Clara found Detective Russo at the diner. He still came in every day. Same corner booth, same lukewarm coffee. The town might have turned its back on the Ethan case, but Russo hadn't. Not really. He watched Clara approach like he'd been expecting her. Trouble sleeps late, he said without looking up from his paper. You're up early. Clara slid into the booth. Her hands trembled slightly as she set down the photo. Ethan's rain boot next to the bike note. Russo's eyes flicked to it, stayed there. Where'd you find these? He asked. Down by Warehouse 11. His jaw tightened. I know the place. I think someone was keeping him there, she said. For a while. I think they used the school. Then the warehouse. Maybe more. You're not a cop, Clara. No, she said. But you were. He didn't reply. I need those old case files, she continued. The ones you said they shelved. The ones no one read. Russo looked at her. Really looked. His voice was quiet. You ever hear what the river does to secrets? She waited. It don't bury them. It softens them. Rounds the edges. Then one day you pull up something and you can't tell if it's truth or rot. Clara nodded. Then let's find out. By nightfall, Clara had a box. Old police notes, faded photos, scraps of evidence that never made it into the system. She laid it all out in her apartment. Maya helped pin the pieces, standing on tiptoe to reach the corners of Clara's growing wall of red thread and tape. Most of it was vague. No witnesses, no prints. A few anonymous tips about boats on the river. One weird call about strange lights near Mill Run. But one item stood out. A black and white photo of a man, grainy, mid-40s, bald with sharp cheekbones. He wasn't labeled, just a note scribbled in Russo's old handwriting. Possible connection. Community volunteer at Mill Run. Vanished 3 months post-closure. Clara traced her finger across the man's face. Who are you? That night, Clara had the dream again. She was by the river. Sunlight through the trees. The water clear, cold. Ethan stood a few yards away, skipping stones. He turned to her. Did you find it? He asked. Find what? The thing I left. He pointed at the river. Clara looked. Under the surface, something gleamed. She stepped into the water, reaching for it. But her foot caught. She slipped, fell. The river roared around her. She woke, choking on air. The next day, Clara went to the county records office. She requested volunteer logs from Mill Run Elementary between 2010 and 2015. It took the clerk 2 hours to find the boxes. She sat on the floor, papers fanned out, flipping pages. Then she saw the name. Dennis Vale. Same man from the photo. Volunteer, 2012 to 2015. Worked afternoons. Helped with river ecology projects. Clara's heart thudded. She typed the name into every database she had access to. Found one old address, rural, out on County Road 9. Maya drove. I'm not letting you walk into a stranger's house alone, she said. They arrived near dusk. Vale's house was small. Peeling paint, half-eaten by ivy. No car in the driveway. No lights. Maya squinted at the mailbox. You sure this is it? Clara nodded. Says he vanished, but no death certificate, no sale records, no movement. So, Maybe he's still here. They stepped onto the porch. Clara knocked. No answer. She tried the handle, unlocked. The door creaked open. The inside smelled like mold and dust. Stacks of old newspapers lined the walls. A coffee mug sat on a table, long dried. Spiderwebs claimed the corners. But something about the place felt frozen, like someone had left in a hurry, or hadn't planned to. Clara found a small room in the back, office maybe, desk covered in notebooks. She flipped one open, drawings, maps of the river, strange marks, circles and arrows, dated entries. Some crossed out violently in red ink. Then a phrase repeated in multiple places. Warehouse 11! Too close. Move site. Maya leaned over her shoulder. Site? Clara nodded. She flipped another page. Tunnel confirmed. Underhatch. School to river. Must seal. Her breath caught. A tunnel? Beneath the old school? She snapped a photo of the page, heart hammering. Then something crashed behind them. They spun around, a figure in the hallway, tall, hooded. Clara didn't see a face, just the glint of something metal in their hand. Run! Maya screamed. They bolted. Out the front door, down the steps, into the car. The figure didn't follow, but as they drove away, Clara looked in the rearview mirror and saw him standing on the porch, watching. Back at her apartment, Clara added the new photos to the wall. She highlighted the word tunnel in red. Then, as she sat in the dark, she whispered to herself, If there's a tunnel, there's a way in. She turned on her desk lamp, pulled out her notebook, and began sketching a map, mill run's layout, the river's course, and the school's proximity. The clock read 2:12 a.m. The world outside was silent, but the river whispered beneath it all. And in that hush, Clara could almost hear Ethan's voice. Don't stop. The next morning, Clara stood outside Mill Run Elementary. It looked smaller than she remembered. Time had chewed at the walls. Paint peeled in strips like torn wallpaper, and vines strangled the front windows. The sign out front had lost its letters, the metal frame casting jagged shadows across the ground. She stood with her hands in her coat pockets, wine-teasing strands of her hair. Maya parked across the street. You really think there's a tunnel under there? I don't think, Clara said. I know. She reached into her backpack and pulled out an old blueprint, the one she'd printed from county records at 3 a.m. The school's basement layout was faint but visible. A maintenance hatch, marked with a red X, connected to a utility line that curved toward the river. See this, she pointed. That's not just plumbing. That's an old drainage corridor. If they widened it... It's a tunnel, Maya finished. Clara nodded. Let's find it. Getting inside was easier than it should have been. A broken side door, rusted hinges, darkness curling past the frame like smoke. They entered with flashlights. The beam danced across dusty lockers and cracked tiles. Clara's footsteps echoed too loud in the silence. It still smells like old pencils, she whispered. They found the basement stairs behind the gymnasium, spiraling down into thick, damp air. Maya hesitated. Tell me again why we're not calling the cops. Because last time I did, Clara said. They told me Ethan was dead. And then she started down the stairs. The basement was a graveyard of forgotten desks and mold-eaten posters. Paint peeled from pipes overhead like skin. Clara scanned the room until she found the hatch. Square, metal, bolted shut. She dropped to her knees and tried the handle. It didn't budge. Maya handed her a crowbar. Clara jammed it under the rusted lip and pushed. The metal groaned. Then, snap, the latch gave way. The hatch creaked open, exhaling air that smelled of damp earth and old secrets. A black tunnel stretched into the dark. Jesus, Maya breathed. Clara climbed in first. The tunnel was narrow and cold. Their footsteps splashed in shallow water that smelled like rot. Clara counted the steps in her head. 50 yards in, they reached a wooden barrier. Graffiti smeared across it in red spray paint. "Keep out." Clara touched the wood. Flimsy. Newer than the tunnel itself. Someone had built this to hide something. She raised the crowbar again. Maya grabbed her wrist. "What if we find something we can't unfind?" Clara looked at her. "I'd rather know than live with a ghost." Then she swung. The boards cracked apart. Dust swirled. Beyond the barrier was a room, lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. And in that room were drawings, dozens of them, scattered across the walls like a child's art gallery. Each one drawn in crayon. Each one signed in the corner, E. O. Ethan O'Neill. Clara stepped forward on trembling legs. One drawing showed the river, its banks lined with trees. Another, a house, hers, with stick figures. A girl with brown hair, tall. A boy, smaller, smiling. In one corner, a note in shaky handwriting. "Sister is close. I hear her sometimes." Clara's knees buckled. She fell to the floor, hand covering her mouth. Maya crouched beside her. "Clara, these drawings." "They're recent," Clara whispered. "Look at the dates. Isanesibsamnyon. Isanesibsamnyon. He's been alive." Tears filled Clara's eyes. "He's still alive." Then she spotted it. A box under a chair, covered in dust. Inside, Polaroids. Of Ethan, not stick drawings. Photos. Some old, some newer. One with him, sitting by a table wearing oversized clothes, gaunt, pale, but alive. Another with him standing in a doorway, blinking against light. And a final photo. A man behind him, blurred face, tall, bald, watching. Clara gripped the picture with both hands. Dennis Vale. Suddenly, a sound echoed down the tunnel. Footsteps, heavy, approaching. The flashlight flickered. Maya's voice cracked. "Someone's coming!" Clara stuffed the photos in her coat. They turned off the flashlight and crouched behind the collapsed barrier, breath shallow. The footsteps grew louder. A shadow moved at the tunnel entrance, paused. Then a voice, low, gruff. "You shouldn't be here." The shadow stepped closer. Clara's heartbeat thundered in her ears. But the footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, retreating. Fading. Gone. They waited 5 minutes before daring to move. Maya hissed. "That wasn't a cop. That was him." Clara nodded. "I saw his boots. Same as in the Polaroid, they climbed out fast. Shaking. Barely speaking." By the time they reached the car, Clara's hands were frozen around the photos. She didn't speak until they were halfway home. "He's keeping Ethan somewhere else now. Somewhere new." Maya swallowed. "Then, what's next?" Clara stared straight ahead. Her voice was quiet, cold. "We find him." That night, Clara tacked the newest photo on the wall, right beside the note from the bike. "He's alive, don't stop." Below it, she wrote in red ink, "Moved site, tunnel known, still listening." And across the wall, lines stretched from photo to map, from sketch to address. Clara sat back exhausted, but her eyes sharp. She wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. She was following footprints. And someone, somewhere, was starting to panic. Morning light spilled through Clara's apartment window. Thin and gray, like watered-down milk. She hadn't slept. The drawings were spread out across her kitchen table. Ethan's signature on each. She traced them with trembling fingers. There was something innocent in the way he'd colored the trees bright green, even though his world had been nothing but shadow. But it was the last drawing that made her stomach twist. A figure standing at the mouth of a tunnel. No face, just a black scribble where features should be, and above it, scrawled in red crayon, "He wears someone else's name." Clara leaned over the map, pinned to her wall. Red thread, linked locations. The school, the pawn shop, the river bend. One thread stretched to a name she hadn't circled yet. Mr. Adrian Holt, her old social studies teacher. She remembered his white beard, The way he smelled like pipe smoke. Ethan had liked him. Always stayed behind after class to ask questions. She grabbed her phone and called the number Detective Russo had quietly given her. 3 rings. Then a tired voice. "Holt speaking." Clara hesitated. "Mr. Holt, it's Clara O'Neill." Silence. Then, quietly, "I wondered when you'd come." Holt lived in a crumbling house on the edge of town, perched near the trees like it wanted to disappear. The porch sagged. Wind chimes clinked softly in the breeze. He opened the door slowly. Same beard, older eyes. "I won't ask how you found me," he said. "Come in." Clara followed him into a room lined with bookshelves. Dust blanketed everything. A fireplace sat cold in the corner. "I want to ask you about Ethan," she said. He nodded slowly. "I figured. You were always the stubborn one." He poured 2 cups of coffee. His hands shook slightly. "I kept that bike," Holt began, "because I couldn't live with what I knew." Clara's heart thudded. "You knew what?" she asked, voice tight. He stared into the steam rising from his cup. "There were rumors back then," he said, "about the river, smuggling routes, people using the tunnels to move things. Not just drugs. People, Clara. Boys, girls." She gripped the edge of the table. "And Ethan?" "I think he saw something he wasn't supposed to." Holt's voice cracked. "And someone made sure he didn't talk." Clara pulled out the Polaroid of the man behind Ethan. "You recognize him?" Holt's eyes flicked to the photo. Long pause. Then he nodded, very slowly. "Name's Dennis Vale. But back then he wasn't Dennis. He went by Coach Riggins. Volunteer at the recreation center. Real friendly, real clean. Always near the kids." Clara's stomach dropped. "He changed his name. Twice, maybe more. People like him, roaches, slip through cracks when the lights come on." He slid a leather journal across the table. "I kept names, notes, things I saw, things I couldn't prove." Clara opened the journal, handwriting tight and careful, dates, locations, descriptions. Then, April 15th, 2014. Saw Ethan O'Neill near the West Tunnel entrance. Followed him to the river dock. He wasn't alone. Man with shaved head pulled him inside. Ethan didn't struggle. Looked drugged. Clara's vision blurred. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Holt's voice was a whisper. "I did. Detective Russo was the only one who believed me. But his hands were tied. No warrants. No solid evidence. So you kept the bike. As a marker. As proof." He looked her in the eye. "I was waiting for you, Clara. I knew you'd come. You're the only one who never stopped." Outside, the wind had picked up. Trees swayed like they were whispering secrets. Clara sat in her car, gripping the journal. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We warned you. Back off, or you'll end up like him." Attached was a photo. Her apartment window, taken just now. That night, Clara stayed at Maya's. They pushed furniture against the doors, tension thick. "I told you this was getting dangerous," Maya whispered. Clara stared at the photo on her phone, the angle, the timing. "They're watching me." She opened Holt's journal again, scanning for anything that could point to where Ethan might be now. Her eyes locked on a single entry. Old fishing shack near Briar Fork, red roof. Lights seen after midnight. River access, possible holding site. She pulled a marker from her bag and circled the words on the map. "We go tomorrow," Maya exhaled. "We?" Clara nodded. "I'm not asking you to come." Maya paused, then gave a crooked smile. "Next time, can we chase ghosts in Italy or something?" At dawn, Clara stood outside the shack. The red roof had faded to rust, but it was still there. Trees loomed around it. The river hissed just beyond the brush. She stepped closer. The wood creaked under her boots. A curtain twitched in the window. Someone was inside. She raised her hand to knock, when a voice from behind froze her in place. "Step away from the door." She turned slowly. A man in a flannel coat, tall, bald, and holding a knife. "Cliffhanger." His voice was calm. "You've been asking the wrong questions." Then he reached into his coat and pulled out something Clara never expected. Not a weapon, not a threat, but a tape recorder. And he pressed play. The recorder clicked, a hiss of static. Then a voice, small, cracked, and unmistakably young. "If someone finds this, my name's Ethan. Ethan O'Neill." Clara's knees buckled. She braced herself on the shack's porch rail. Her breath caught somewhere between a sob and a scream. The man in the flannel coat didn't move, just stood there, watching her. The recorder outstretched like a peace offering, or a confession. Ethan's voice continued. "I don't know where I am. They said if I talk, bad things happen. But I can't stay quiet forever." Static. A long silence. Then, "Mr. Holt was right. The man with the snake tattoo is the worst. He says I'm lucky to be alive." Clara's hand shot up. "Stop the tape." But the man didn't. Because there was more. "They watch us all the time. At night, we hear things from the water. Sometimes, I think the river is trying to help." The tape clicked off. Silence fell, broken only by the distant whisper of the current. "Where did you get that?" Clara's voice was brittle, barely human. The man looked at her evenly. His gray eyes were worn, tired. "I'm not one of them, Clara. My name's Ellis. I worked maintenance at the warehouse. Before I knew what it really was." Clara didn't believe him. Not yet. "Why give me this now?" "Because someone's reopened the tunnels," Ellis said. "I thought it stopped when they took Ethan. But 2 nights ago I saw trucks again. Same markings." "You recorded Ethan. Why?" "I didn't. One of the boys who escaped gave it to me before he disappeared again." Clara stared at him. "Do you know where they took Ethan?" "I don't. But I know someone who might." They drove in silence. Maya was waiting in the car at the road's edge, her fingers white-knuckled on the wheel. When she saw Ellis, she almost floored it. "Who the hell is that?" she hissed. "Allie," Clara said, climbing into the back seat. "For now." They didn't trust him, but they had no choice. Ellis directed them down a dirt road, barely wide enough for the tires. Trees pressed close on either side. Shadows crawled. Eventually, they reached a collapsed barn behind an overgrown orchard. Clara stepped out, her boots sinking into damp leaves. "She lives inside," Ellis said. "She?" "Ms. Delphine, midwife, herbalist. Used to patch up the kids who came through. She knew who came and who never left." Inside, the barn smelled of lavender and damp wood. A woman sat by the fireplace, long white braids coiled like vines over her shoulders. Her dark eyes flicked to Clara. "You've got Ethan's eyes," she said, before Clara could speak. "You knew him." "I cleaned him up after they dragged him out of the tunnel," Delphine said, voice soft. "Had bruises on his ribs. Told me his sister taught him how to skip stones." Clara nearly collapsed again. "Is he alive?" Delphine stared into the fire. "I never saw him again after that night. But he wasn't dead when they took him back. And he wasn't scared, not really. He said you'd come." Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks. "He said you'd never give up." Delphine handed her a small cloth bundle. Inside, a cracked blue marble and a metal pin. Clara blinked. "That's his." Around his neck when they brought him in. He clutched it like it was armor. Clara closed her fist around it, her breath catching in her throat. Then Delphine added something else. "The tunnels don't run dry. Not really. They go deeper than anyone knows." She looked up at Clara. "But you'll need someone who knows them." "Who?" Delphine reached behind her chair, pulled out a photograph. Clara's breath left her in a gasp. The girl in the photo looked maybe 16, pale, hollow eyes, dirty fingernails. And beside her, Ethan, gaunt, but alive. Clara touched the photo like it might vanish. "Who is she?" Delphine hesitated. "She called herself Seven, said she was born in the tunnels." That night, Clara pinned the photo to her apartment wall. The red threads shifted. New name, new lead. Her phone buzzed again, a new message. "You're close. That's dangerous." Then another image, the red-roofed shack. This time, with a smear of fresh blood on the door. Maya stood behind her. "We should go to the police," Clara turned. "No. They're threatening you now." "They've been doing that for 10 years, Clara's voice cracked. "And we're finally close." She stared at the map, at the name 7. "At this point, I'd walk into hell to bring him home." Later, Clara stood by the river bank. Moonlight painted silver lines on the water's surface. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the blue marble, held it to her lips. "Hold on, Ethan," she whispered. "I'm coming." The river whispered back, and somewhere, far down the current, a stone skipped once, then twice. Cliffhanger. The next morning, Clara's phone buzzed again. Blocked number. One message. "I know where 7 is. Meet me at the floodgate tunnel. Come alone." She stared at the text, heart pounding, then picked up her coat and the marble. The floodgate tunnel wasn't on any map. Clara stood at its mouth just past dawn. The air thick with the smell of damp earth and moss. Behind her, the trees sighed like they knew she shouldn't go in alone. But she was alone. Just like the message said. She tightened her grip on her flashlight, its narrow beam swallowed by the tunnel's black throat. Then a sound, like a pebble slipping, made her freeze. "Clara!" a voice said. She turned. A girl stepped from the shadows behind the gate's rusted frame. Barefoot, mud on her jeans. A scar curled under her left eye. Clara recognized her instantly. The girl from the photo. "7?" Clara whispered. The girl nodded, but her expression stayed guarded. "I knew you'd come." They walked in silence through the tunnel, water lapping around their boots. Rusted pipes lined the walls. Graffiti blurred by time and mildew. "Why now?" Clara asked finally. "Why reach out?" 7 didn't look back. "Because people are disappearing again. And your brother left something behind." Clara's breath hitched. "Ethan. He's alive?" 7 paused. "He was. I haven't seen him in 2 years. But he didn't die here. He got out once, briefly." Clara stumbled, then righted herself. "How? Why didn't he come home?" 7 turned slowly. "Because he thought they'd follow him. And he wasn't done saving the others." Clara's throat tightened. "What others?" 7's voice dropped. "Kids, like us. Ones no one looked for." They reached a split in the tunnel. One path caved in, the other still passable. 7 ducked into the right-hand corridor, where the air grew colder. "This was where they kept us. Underground for days at a time." "Why?" Clara asked. "Trafficking, labor, smuggling. The river hid everything. If someone ran, the current took them." She led Clara into a side chamber. Mold-stained mattresses, broken crates, a child's shoe. Clara's chest heaved. Then 7 reached behind a loose stone and pulled out a box. Inside, layered in cloth, was a small cassette recorder. Clara reached for it with shaking hands. "It's Ethan," 7 said softly. "One of the last tapes he made." They played it right there. Click. Ethan's voice, older now, steadier. "Clara, if you ever hear this, I'm trying. I'm still fighting. I saw your name online. I saw the post with my bike. I knew you'd come." Clara sank to her knees. 7 turned away, giving her space. "I'm trying to find a way to break it open, from the inside. But if I don't make it, Please, keep looking. For the others. They matter too. A pause. And tell Mom I tried. I really did. The tape cut off. Clara couldn't breathe. Seven spoke again, her voice low. He saved me, kept me sane when I wanted to disappear. Clara wiped her eyes. Where was he last seen? There's a place upriver. Abandoned hatchery. We heard rumors he made it there, hurt, but alive. Someone helped him. But the people running this, they've got long arms. He might have gone back in, willingly. Why would he go back? Seven looked Clara in the eye. Because there were still kids in the dark. That night, Clara sat in her apartment, staring at the tape deck. Her map had new strings now, one leading to the hatchery, another to the smuggling tunnels. Maya leaned in the doorway. You look like hell. Feels accurate. You're not going alone again. I might have to. Maya stepped forward. Clara? What if he's gone? What if this ends in heartbreak? Clara looked up, her eyes steady. Then I'd rather hurt from the truth than rot from not knowing. The next morning, they drove north, past the river's bend, to the hatchery ruins. It was surrounded by chain-link fence and wild thistle. They found the caretaker's shed unlocked. Inside, a rusted cot, a makeshift shelf, water bottles, a cracked mirror, and pinned to the wall with a knife. A photograph of Clara, her high school yearbook photo, freshly creased. Clara staggered back, hand over her mouth. He was here, she whispered. He kept looking at me. Then her phone vibrated. No number. A message. You're too close. Last warning. Attached, a blurry photo taken through binoculars of Clara and Maya entering the hatchery. Cliffhanger. Clara stares at the photo, fingers numb. Someone's watching us, right now. From the shadows behind the hatchery, the crunch of leaves. Then a whisper, barely audible. Run!